It's time for
DodgerHeads. What's up, everybody? Welcome into DodgerHeads Live, presented by DodgerBlue.com, part of the Medium Large Sports Network. My name is Jeff Spiegel, joined tonight by Sebastian Abdón Ibarra, artist formerly known as Anthony Witrado, who's not happy tonight. Ugh is his identity of choice tonight. The Dodgers lose their fourth in their last five. It's their third in a row. And this one wasn't pretty, guys. There's some nights where they lose and you say, positive here, positive here. Sebastian, I'll come to you first. Not a whole lot to be positive about in this 8-2 loss tonight.
Yeah, it's obviously kind of going back to the first game or the last game against the Braves, where when it didn't look like they were going to win because they really shouldn't have. I was kind of wondering, okay, how are they going to respond to this kind of sloppy play, like kind of the first time they played this poorly, and it hasn't, and they ended up winning the game, so it kind of like puts those fears aside. But then you realize, okay, well, they still been playing kind of sloppy, not as much in this game, like no errors, no like catastrophic errors, but still just kind of poor play. So really, you just got to kind of flush this one and got to move on.
Anthony, I mentioned it's the fourth out of their last five. This is a team that started out absolutely on fire, 8 wins in a row to start the season. They're now 9-4, which is still a respectable record, but after going 8-0, it's a bit of a disappointment.
Sure.
How do you navigate as a fan watching what we saw tonight?
That's a tough part. It is, because like you mentioned, if they got out to a 4-1 start and then they end up kind of here, it's a little easier to swallow. I think the fact that they started the way they did and they come out and they lose 4 or 5 or whatever it is. It's just, it's bad. It feels bad. And so, and there's some, our MO, Jeff, is to be like, look, it's early, right? Like they're still one of the best. They're still probably the best team in baseball. Like this will right itself. But I understand the frustration right now because they are failing right now on kind of both sides of the ball, right? The starting pitching, which you can give the reasons why, right? Tyler Glasnow start tonight. What happened with Blake Snell, like all of, you can give these reasons and they're valid. And then the offense it doesn't have it going really, they're not clicking. And so, I think when you factor those things in, it gets frustrating to watch. And when you cap it with a loss like this tonight, to a team that's not very good, that's the part where it's frustrating. But I'll end it by saying this. Look, yes, still one of the best teams in baseball. This is an ugly stretch, though. I'm not going to deny that. I'm not going to tell people to not believe their eyes.
Yeah. And that's exactly, I think, the right balance. We don't have to choose between was what we just watched ugly and is it time to start panicking about this team, right? Like right. It's April 8th. And Sebastian, it looked really, really bad. To Anthony's point, we're going to discuss the pitching, the hitting. I mean, there was no part of this game that was good today. I mean, I guess you could say the bullpen, Ben Casparius and Luis Garcia had 3 shutout innings, but Wrobleski wasn't good. You look at the offense, 8 hits is where it ends up. They obviously tacked on some meaningless runs and meaningless hits at the end of this game, but basically 1 through 7 in the order had 1 hit or fewer. Andy Pages, of all people, the only guy to have 2 hits tonight. Sebastian, let's talk hitting, because Wrobleski to the side. From what we've seen from the Dodgers offense, they've been heavily reliant on the long ball so far this season. You look at a night like tonight, the wind is blowing in. How concerned are you at all, if at all? How concerned are you, if at all, about the state of the Dodgers offense 13 games in?
Yeah, you mentioned the 8 hits. They were 0 for 7 with runners in scoring position. Obviously, that's probably not going to stay the same throughout the whole season. I'm not too worried about the Dodgers kind of their production so far this season, just because what they're doing good, they're getting walks, they're seeing the ball, not seeing the ball. They have a good handle of the strike zone. They're getting walks and they're getting home runs, and that's really kind of a good baseline for what you want. Honestly, you just want to be able to get on base. Want to make the pitchers work. It is. I know it's kind of like a cliche, but it is still early. Being over reliant on the home runs is a problem if that doesn't change going forward. But right now, I'm just pleased that, besides this kind of 5-game stretch here, before this stretch, I was pleased kind of just with the putting together, getting on base, and getting big hits. What you want to see going forward is getting more stringing them together, which they have had trouble with so far.
Anthony, the elephant in the room we haven't mentioned here. It was really cold today. Okay, these are some SoCal guys, Anthony, West Coast guys. They're used to the sunshine and the beach. Why are we making these guys fly to the East Coast where they got to wear? Dave Roberts got a beanie on. The Dodgers got that, whatever that thing is that comes up, turtlenecks vibes with the over the head. Like, what are we doing? Why are we playing games in weather like this, Anthony?
This is not baseball weather. No, but look, I hated covering games on the East Coast and in the Midwest in April. But not a ton of excuses here. They need to play better because in all honesty, like you take it back to when they were in LA and the offense was like okay, but it wasn't hitting. Like, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't what we would expect from this team. That was also like March, start of April when they were at home. So, look, do I have any doubt that it will get there and get there relatively soon, like within the next week, 10 games, something like that? No, not at all. Like I fully believe that this is the best roster in baseball. I believe they'll show it. And, I don't think a 9-4 start is a reason to panic, even though it's been, 4 losses in 5 games. So, they'll get there, but again, that doesn't make it any easier when we're sitting here watching every night and they're getting beat the way they're getting beat.
112 win pace. I'll point out this team is still on 112 win pace, which is the over for anywhere that you could have found the number, including the made up line that we threw out on this show. Anthony, I'll just come back to you real quick on this one. They've kind of had a busy couple of days, right? They go to the White House, and we're setting politics aside. They did that. Some guys visited the Senate and got a tour of Capitol Hill today. Obviously, I'm not expecting these guys to just be sitting in their hotel rooms all day until they report to the stadium when they're in these cities. Do you think should we make anything of just the itinerary that this team has had in the last 2 days and how that might impact them, or am I making too many excuses for them?
Yeah, I think that's one too many. The White House thing was cool for them, for the guys who wanted to at least see, the pomp and circumstance around like being in the Capitol, being at the White House, like all of that stuff for them. But aside from that, those few hours, like their schedule hasn't been really thrown off. Like they're just on the road. So to score 2 runs today when the other team scores 8, like there's no real excuse for that other than like you didn't hit today. You didn't perform today. The other team did. Wrobleski wasn't very good, obviously. And he's a spot starter right now, so there's that. But still, like you build this depth for a reason, and it's not all there. I understand that, but like we also had hopes for Wrobleski too. Yeah, and in his first appearance of the season, or his first start of the season, at least, it doesn't look very good.
Yeah, we'll get to Wrobleski in a second. Stockton Slap's got a few super chats here. He says, we look uninspired, no urgency to score early. They had a great stat on the broadcast about how the Dodgers have a negative run differential in the first 4 innings and a massive positive run differential in the last 5. Tonight was, I keep saying tonight, this afternoon was a perfect example of that. He also says too many guys playing out of position, time for a change. Obviously, with Freddie Freeman down, you've got Kike Hernandez shuffling over. So you got moved that. And this is the one that I thought was the most interesting, Sebastian. He said, even our wins were sloppy. I'm worried. Right. I'm not ready to say I'm worried, Sebastian, but I do think the commenter here makes a great point that if you wanted to express any degree of concern about the Dodgers. I think pointing out the fact that even when they have won, it has not always been pretty. I think they said they've gone down. They've been behind in like 9 of the 12 games, or maybe 10 of the 13 games they've played, something like that this season. So that piece, Sebastian, I resonate with. That yes, they're 9-4, but of the 9 they've won, you and I talked about this the other night, Anthony, like a couple of those easily could have been extra losses. You could add a couple of them very easily losses that could have been wins. But Sebastian, that's the piece that I would say, if I were going to stand here and make the case about being concerned, it would be, yeah, I know the record is, but what I'm seeing with my eyes is sloppier than a 9-4 record.
Yeah, when you kind of talk about like making your own luck, I know like the first thing, and I hate that it's the first thing that came to my mind, but like the Chiefs, where yeah, like there's some kind of like things with the rest, but like more often than not, like that kind of do make their own luck. And really, the only game that really stands out to me that was really sloppy was just the last game against the Braves. Like that was the one where it's like, man, they're playing like this isn't the team. Yeah. This isn't the Dodgers that like won the World Series last year. Like the other ones, like yeah, maybe here and there, but like there, you make your own luck, and good teams, find a way to win games. So like I said, there's only really one that I'm super concerned about. Obviously, these 4 losses, majority of them have been like the same kind of thing where it's really sloppy. So you want to see that change. But I'm not too concerned that their wins are flukes. They just need to get back to, playing the way that they're capable of playing.
Luis says, can't wait to get bounced in the NLDS again. I don't know if Luis is Luis a Padres fan? How do we get a Padres fan in here? Luis, they won the World Series last year. Let's take a deep breath, okay? David said, like the Godfather said, Tommy Lasorda, every team wins 60 games. Every team loses 60 games. It's what you do with the other 100 that counts. Pump the brakes, people. Anthony, this is something you would echo, I believe.
Yeah, I agree. Paisan, your math is a little off there, though.
Yeah, true. Good. I didn't even do the math. I was like, oh yeah, other 40 games that counts.
Yeah. But I mean, yes.
He is out at his restaurant tonight, so who knows? Maybe if he was watching that game, a couple extra dirty martinis sent his way. He
is. Sabatini might have been eating the olives that were soaked up in the martini there. But yeah, I tend to agree with this. It's you're going to see what they have long term. That's why the season is 162 games. That plays itself out over the course of that many games, and over the course of 15 or whatever, like you have these variances. It's why the playoffs are so crazy in baseball, because it only takes a week, 10 games or something like that for a team to get hot or a team to get cold, and you lose. I think I saw something that the record is the same right now as it was at this time last year. It's just that, again, it's the 4 and 5. I think that's what it is. Is that right? I keep saying that. That has people.
Yeah, it's four of their last 3 in a row, 4 of their last 5.
And that's what has people pissed.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, I think the expectations when it jumps out to an 8-0 record, 4 out of 5, we all know, like as Dodgers fans, it's just something we're not accustomed to and we're not willing to accept. But I think after the 8-0 start, you had people sort of giggling watching this team play, like, oh my gosh, is this team ever going to lose? And then, yes, they're going to lose game 9 and 11 and 12 and 13. And all of a sudden you're like, all right, hold on a second. You got my hopes so high up that, it's extra disappointing. Stockton Slap with another super chat. We can't pussyfoot around. Our division is loaded now.
It's early for those so far playing really well too, like the Giants.
Exactly right. It's exactly what I was going to say. So we appreciate the super chats. Thank you to David for the huge super chat. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, Stockton Slap.
To give a little perspective to this part of the conversation too, like I was all over today listening to podcasts and watching the YouTube shows and stuff like that. I particularly wanted to see what Trevor Plouffe and Chris Rose said after the Sasaki start. And actually, side note on that, Chris Rose did not apologize, but apparently in their comment section, they got crushed for basically saying that they hoped that the Philly fans would come out and essentially make Sasaki cry.
Yeah.
And so Chris Rose was like, that isn't what I meant to say, but I rewatched it after reading the comments and I realized that's how it came out. And so he sort of corrected his own record on that one. And then he gave Plouffe the opportunity to do the same, and he would not do it. And Plouffe was the guy who actually said, come out and boo this guy. Let's see if you can make him cry again. Paraphrasing a little bit there, but that's essentially what he said. So interesting there. I kind of like Trevor Plouffe in this new media role, but that was Bush. Yeah. And he should be better than that as a former player. Anyway, a lot of what these national shows had said was they didn't even mention sort of the skid. And a lot of these were recorded either last night or this morning. Didn't barely mention the skid. I mean, they're talking about the Dodgers and the Blake Snell thing and when is Kershaw coming back and like that kind of stuff. But like on that national radar, this little skid here, this slide, it's not even registering because I think people still know who this team actually is.
Yeah, at 9-4, the Dodgers fall to third place in the NL West. Padres are 9-2, Giants are 8-2. So that's where things stand. David did say, by the way, too many wines tonight. Love you guys. even too many wines. Good for you, David.
I love my guy.
And Stockton Slap reiterates, it's not the record, it's the way we're playing. And we agree.
And I agree. Stockton Slap's right. I agree. It's how they're doing it. That's ugly and frustrating. I totally understand that. And, you know, they may turn this around starting tomorrow, right? And you and I have said it, Jeff, a bunch of times. They essentially need one of these things to be great on any given night, which they're very capable of one of those things being great, and then get another good performance from the other aspect of the club, bullpen, starting pitching, offense, and they typically are going to win.
Yeah.
And they're not necessarily getting the offense or the starting pitching right now.
Yeah, let's talk Justin Wrobleski because he was the starting pitcher tonight. And I mentioned just before coming on, Justin's a guy I've gotten a chance to interview a couple of times. He's a bright kid. I think his stuff is very good. He was called up probably prematurely, feels wrong last year. I don't think it wasn't on the timeline for him to make his major league debut in 2024, but he did, struggled a little bit, came back, had himself a good spring, made a good first start down in AAA, and kind of was the guy that was lined up to pitch on today in the minors. So when the need arose with Blake Snell going to the injured list, Wrobleski was the guy who got the call. Sebastian, 5 innings, 8 hits, 8 earned is the final line for Wrobleski, which in some ways is almost better than it felt because he ended up getting that innings number up to 5. Those 8 runs were given up in the first 4 innings. It was 5-0 through 2 innings, and I want to root for him, but he just wasn't good tonight, Sebastian, and the stuff wasn't where it needed to be. And I'm not going to sit here and make excuses about the cold and the wind because this kind of lines up with what we saw from Wrobleski last year, unfortunately.
Yeah, just a lot of missing location. Like they showed all 3 home runs James Wood hit this series, they were just all middle. So, you know, just missing, got to hit, you got to execute, can't miss, especially that bad. You can't miss that badly.
Yeah.
There's not much like really to dig into. He's just, you know, not a great performance. And I mean, it's not like right now, it's not like he's expected to be anything more than like what Anthony said, like a spot starter. So not too much to, you know, kind of get hung up on about, but, you know, you'd like to see basically just better execution, I guess, whenever he gets that next opportunity.
Yeah, the bummer was for me, Anthony, so he comes into the game. It's kind of a seeing eye single first batter, and you're like, gosh dang it, young guy, you want him to catch some luck. Then it's the tank to dead center, and they've been telling us the whole broadcast about how bad the wind is and how it's blowing in. And then he freaking 111 miles an hour off the bat, an absolute
shot
missile to dead center through the wind, and it's 2-0. I'm like, gosh dang it, and he gets out of the inning, and then he comes back in the bottom of the second. He gets 2 quick outs. And he gets ahead 0-2. I believe it was Cruz is who he was facing there. And I'm thinking like, all right, just get through this inning, settle yourself down. Maybe you can build off this. Maybe we can get to 4 innings, 2 earned or something like that. And then it's a single on an 0-2 count. It's a walk. It's a walk. It's a walk to run, walk in a run, 3-0. And it's the Keibert Ruiz high fastball that he gets on top of and puts into left field. All of a sudden it's 5-0. He gives up 3 more runs in the 4th. Dave Roberts actually said before the game, Anthony, and some Dodgers fans might need to plug their ears, and not to say this might not change, but he said Wrobleski might be here to stay for a little while, that this might not just be a one-time deal, because obviously they're going to need probably one more time through the rotation with Snell's spot, and if they're doing the 6-man rotation, who knows when Gonsolin would be up.
Right.
Knack, we're going to talk later. After what you saw tonight, Is there any chance this guy pitches again in 5 or 6 days for the Dodgers, or do you think he maybe lost his opportunity and they're going to find a way to get either Landon Knack in that spot again, or maybe it's Bobby Miller getting a shot next time around? How do you think they handle this?
I could see Bobby Miller, them rearranging the OKC rotation to get him a start to see where he's at. I don't know in the next rotation through if they need both Knack and another spot.
Yeah, because they do have Thursday off.
They have Thursday off, right? So I'm not sure how that lines up necessarily. Obviously, you need somebody for Snell, but then after that with the day off, I'm not sure how that lines up. If they don't,
it looks like just not to jump in, but it looks like so basically the way that it lines up, you have the off day Thursday, you would have Sasaki, Glasnow, and May Friday, Saturday, Sunday, no, is Yamamoto in there? Maybe ESPN's got this off. But basically, it looks like there's one hole in the rotation that could either be Knack or it could be Wrobleski or it could be Miller.
Yeah, so I'm guessing it would be Knack. Also, Knack is part of that pitching surplus we talk about. Whereas like Wrobleski is sort of not. He was needed because of injury and Knack didn't line up. They also needed 2 guys this week. So I think they just stick with Knack because it allows them to keep dealing from the guys that they actually trust.
Yeah. So to correct that, I believe it's Yamamoto pitching Friday. Does that sound right? I think Yamamoto pitched last Friday. So I think it would be Yamamoto and Sasaki Friday, Saturday, and then you would get Glasnow Sunday, May Monday, and then presumably somebody else Tuesday to give kind of Yamamoto the extra rest. So sorry for butchering that, but I believe that's the plan. So yeah, it does look like one time through the rotation, you could get one guy, whether it's Knack or Bobby Miller in there. Sebastian, anything you want to add on that front on the Wrobleski piece?
Yeah, no, just kind of the biggest thing that you said, that the important thing was that he was able to give them, he was able to get 5. And I think that, if anything, could keep him around, just because if you could give 5, or you need a good solid start to hand off to the bullpen. If you could do that, maybe he doesn't give up 8 runs every time, but, being able to finish the game off like that way, I think was kind of important for him.
Yeah. Yeah, at least in the short term. I like that. A little silver lining for him and for the Dodgers to be able to, Kasperius gives you a couple, Garcia gives you 1, and basically you can get through this game. Yes, it's a loss, but resting the entire bullpen, all your top arms, with the exception of Kasperius, who pitched well tonight, is good news there. Just to close the book on Wrobleski, 10 whiffs on 42 swings tonight, a 24% whiff rate. The called strike/whiff rate was 29%. So those aren't terrible numbers. He was in the zone. We talked about that. 63% of his pitches in the zone. It just, he didn't seem to be fooling anybody. And a lot of that probably had to do with location. But whether it was pitch sequencing, whether it was location, whatever it was, he was getting a lot of swings. And while he did get some whiffs, he gave up a lot of contact as well. Let's get to some super chats here. John with the $10 super chat. Thank you. He said they need a major shakeup. Muncy has been a major liability. He has not aged well. Muncy's a guy a lot of people are frustrated by, Anthony. And you look at the numbers, I understand why. He's hitting a $190, and Muncy's one of these guys, not quite Chris Taylor bad, but when Muncy's not going right, it tends to look uglier than some other guys when they're not going right. He is getting up there in age. We know the defense has long been a question mark, although I think he's been, for the most part, fine over there. What do you make of what we've seen from Muncy, and is there any level of panic for him specifically?
I'm not panicking, but I'm also not writing it off as nothing. His approach has been brutal. It's been really bad. For as good as like Will Smith, he's kind of done a 180 from where he was at a certain point last season with the approach to these at-bats. Muncy has gone the other way. And this is a guy who we expect to like grind and see a lot of pitches and have good at-bats even when he makes outs. And that first at-bat today I thought was a perfect example of a guy maybe a little bit in his own head.
Yeah.
He comes up, I think it was 2 on, something like that.
Yeah.
And
Kike had walked right in front of him on like 4 straight pitches, I think.
And he had walked 2 in a row, right?
He walked
a long at bat to Conforto, and then a 4-pitch walk to, I think, Kike.
Yeah, you're right. Conforto and Kike back-to-back walks.
So 2 on. So then I'm thinking as he comes up, perfect spot for Muncy here because he now knows I can be patient. I can wait on a pitch. I can keyhole something, find the barrel. He does not swing at the first 5 pitches, and the count goes full. And one of the strikes was like, okay, that's a fine pitch to take. The other one was like, oh, okay, you might have been able to swing at that. Doesn't swing at the first 5 pitches. The 6th pitch is a fastball up and out of the zone, and that's the one he hacks at and is not even close to it. Yeah. And what that hinted to me was that's a guy who goes up thinking I'm trying to draw a walk, not I'm looking for my pitch. And when that last pitch comes, he's kind of already made up his mind that he's going to swing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And doesn't recognize location, swings through it. And that's the part that's a little concerning, is that he does not look like himself. It'd be one thing if, he was barreling a couple balls here and there, they were Adam outs, or, he's still drawing some walks and having competitive at bats, but these look like he's searching.
Yeah. And it was in many ways the worst spot for Muncy to come up in because of the walk right before. It's a 4-pitch walk. And so he takes ball 1, which everybody in the world is like, great. Do not for the life of you swing at anything until this guy throws you a strike. Pitch 2 is a strike. Great. Take it. That's perfectly fine with me. If Muncy would have swung at that pitch, regardless of where it was, people would have been mad. Then he takes ball 2 and ball 3. So at that point, it's a 3-1 count. 7 of the last 8 pitches have been outside of the zone. And that's where it gets tricky, because I think in his right mind, not pressing, not freaking out, he's like, all right, to your point, I'm looking in one spot for one pitch, 4-seam fastball, 94 miles an hour, and he just takes it, which again, there's part of me that's like 7 of the last 8 pitches for balls, like, okay. But Muncy's eye, you kind of want to trust him there and say, you don't need to be so locked out, because you can see the pitch. You can see balls and strikes, and he takes it. And then to your point, it's the worst of all, because then he swings at the one ball the one pitch he shouldn't have swung at is the one he does, and he ends up striking out. And so I see people in the chat putting Muncy in the same category as Austin Barnes or Miguel Rojas. Can we pause real quick and stop that nonsense? Because 2 of the 3 guys we just mentioned, I'll let you guess which, don't belong in that category. All right. They belong in a different category. And whether or not it's a major league category is up for interpretation. Okay. Max Muncy's still going to be a productive baseball player. He's still a good player. Those other 2 guys, again, it's, congratulations. Enjoy the last spot on the bench. It's nice to have your locker room leadership. Okay. Muncy's still a player that's going to produce. It just is ugly right now. And so we appreciate the super chat, John. I think Muncy's a fascinating conversation, so I'm glad that you brought him up. Stockton Slap, we've set ourselves up to be a huge laughing stock of MLB if we don't win the division. Everyone's waiting for us to fail with how much money is spent. Sebastian, do you agree with that? Do you think if the Dodgers somehow don't win the NL West, will that be a point of laughter for Major League Baseball?
I mean, it'd have to be, but I don't. Again, it's early. I don't foresee that happening really. But if it does happen, of course, like, though, with the way that kind of Ohtani's home run was blowing up on social media yesterday, that post, like the MLB's just like, it's the same thing again. Fucking, I don't know why. I think of the Chiefs. It's the same thing with the Chiefs. Like the NFL feeds into like the Chiefs, and the MLB feeds into the Dodgers' popularity, and that just kind of creates resentment. Yeah. So obviously, if that happens, they're gonna get made fun of. Same thing they said last year. If they don't win the World Series, they're gonna get made fun of. So, but again, so I don't really see that happening. Something really bad, drastic would have to happen. But I will say though about the Ohtani thing, like, it's just like, I don't know why they capitalized it. It was the 3rd inning. It just could have just said like Ohtani, like it's a brand new ball game, Ohtani home run, whatever. But they chose to, like, for no reason, to all caps it. I don't know why they did that. So it's not partial, like at all really in my mind, but partially it's not the fault of the Dodgers. It's just a lot of like MLB just kind of pushing, which they kind of
want, right? They want.
It is a business, but
they want everything loud around the Dodgers. They want loud wins. They want loud home runs. They want loud losses, Anthony.
Yeah, it's the same with the Lakers. When people complain about Lakers coverage, like, well, then stop clicking on the stuff that has the Dodgers and the Lakers in it. Like, that's what sells for these companies, the leagues and the media companies. But to the point of the laughing stock, 2 points on this. The teams that are ahead of them right now, mainly the Padres and let's say the Giants, are especially the Giants, they may not have another stretch like this the rest of the season where they win this many games or they have that many wins in this many games. That's not to say that they can't be a good team, but like this is a really hot stretch for them. And so a laughing stock might be strong because I still think that if you're going to take the division from the Dodgers, one, you're going to have to take it. They're not going to lose it. They're not going to suddenly win 90 games.
Yeah.
You're going to have to win 107, 108, 110 games, I think, to win this division, because the Dodgers are going to be somewhere in that probably 103 to 105 to 110 range, right? And they're going to be in there somewhere.
115.
Like as a safe bet, right? Like 105 plus. And so I wouldn't say laughing stock, because you go in and you face a 107 win second place team. And let's say they end up playing, if a team beats them, they're probably the top seed in the playoffs. They got to play the Dodgers. They're liable to get swept still.
Yeah.
So
I do think, I was just going to say, to the point of the original, I think it is the Dodgers have a target on their back. And if they fail, they will be pointed at, laughed at, mocked. If you're a Dodgers fan, all that matters is what happens at the end of the season. If this team wins a World Series or doesn't win a World Series, I think we all agree a division title, like we got a lot of time here. Jose points out the playoffs are next week. The boys got this. Nothing to worry about. What were you going to say, Anthony?
I don't think they would be mocked if they were second place team in the division and they won 107 games. I think it would be more like the Padres or the Diamondbacks were so great this year, And yes, the Dodgers with that payroll didn't win the division, but again, if they win 90 games, 91 games, and they finish in second or third, that's a different story. But I don't see this roster winning only 90 to 95 games.
You assume too much of people, Anthony. If the Dodgers finish second, they could win 159 games and they will be made fun of. Like people are looking for anything they can label as failure for this team, and it will be magnified.
Well, you're right. You're right, because Dodger fans and fans of other teams will turn them into a laughingstock. Media won't. For the most part, because I think they'd understand, they still want to look. The Giants won 107 games, the Dodgers won 106, and the Dodgers beat them in the playoffs.
When you say media, though, you're talking like Fabian Ardaya and The Athletic, sure. Stephen A. Smith, like the loudest voices, the people, the things that are going to get the most clicks.
Is barely media.
No, I agree with you, but my point is they're louder. Like we could talk about an article that 5% of the world is reading. The people that are going to be on TV. The Chris Rose, Trevor Plouffe of the world, like all the people we talk about.
That's who I think won't make them a laughingstock. Like Stephen A. Smith probably would, but no one watches First Take for baseball coverage. But the other guys, the other ESPN guys, Passan and Kirk and those dudes, sure. I don't think are coming on and going, these Dodgers are terrible. They only won 107 games.
Yeah, I just don't think. I would like to think those are the people that are being read and listened to. And I just don't think they are by large numbers of people is my fear. So
it's fair.
Jose, the playoffs aren't next week. The boys got this. We're with you. Stockton slap again. All of our pitching surplus, and we're already scrambling. Here's the good news. Like so far, we haven't called anybody up that wasn't expected to pitch in the major leagues in 2025. Okay. That's when we start scrambling. I see people calling for Jackson Ferris, who's great. One of the top pitching prospects. When you get to the Jackson Ferris level of let's call this guy up, that's when we're scrambling. Everybody knew Wrobleski was going to start games in 2025. Bobby Miller was going to start games in 2025. Knack is going to start games. We're not scrambling till we dip beneath that level as far as I'm concerned, Anthony.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the pitching surplus we always understood was coming with time. It wasn't going to be right out of the gate because of the guy like Ohtani and Kershaw and Catman,
Tony Gonsolin.
Yeah. But you know what I mean? Like those guys are coming and they're moving them along slowly, because if they did need somebody, they had a Landon Knack and hopefully a Wrobleski, those kinds of guys. Bobby Miller still around, right? Like they're able to go and get spot starts from these kinds of guys until the cream of the crop of the surplus is ready to come back in and deal. So and he's right that it sucks that we're scrambling already and it's the third week of the season or whatever it is, something like that. But that was because of an injury obviously you don't expect to happen. And we knew that if that did happen, then they were going to have to call somebody if it wasn't necessarily like, okay, Clayton, you're ready now. Come on in.
Yeah, and really it's 2 injuries because Gonsolin was expected to be ready at the beginning of the season and is still working his way back from that. And you're doing the 6-man rotation, et cetera, et cetera. Kevin says Ohtani seems like his shoulder is still bothering. Sebastian, they made a comment about this on the broadcast today on one of his first swings. It looked to me like he was shaking his hand out. It was cold. Maybe he got one off the end of the bat. Have you seen anything, Sebastian, that makes you believe Ohtani's shoulder may be a concern?
Yeah, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh, people are going to make a big deal out of this. I think it was just, he got jammed, got a stinger. I'm not overly concerned. I don't know what else to say. I'm not concerned about it. I don't think it's that big of a deal right now.
It's cold outside, guys. It's cold outside. You ever hit a bat, hit a ball with it's cold outside? Come on now. John with the super chat. The roster is not as strong as Anthony is saying with Pages in center, Muncy at third, Barnes, and Taylor is your bench. You misspelled Rojas, but Barnes and Rojas is synonyms. Look, that might be slightly disrespectful to Rojas because I believe he's actually reached base at some point this season, but it's neither here nor there. We know, look, Pages 2 hits today. Okay. So let's just set that aside. Got one out of the park, got another hit. But yeah, John, I think your point is well received in that center field is a less than ideal situation for the Dodgers right now. I would counter with, I think the Dodgers have the level of expectation, what you're comparing this Dodgers roster to is unrealistic for everybody else. Like we can sit here and nitpick on Max Muncy, and Max Muncy has been playing poorly. If Max Muncy was like the 7th best hitter on any other team in Major League Baseball, they'd be thrilled if Max Muncy was their 7th best hitter. If Andy Pages was the guy that they were complaining about, like that would be the least of a lot of these teams' problems. We joke about Austin Barnes. There are teams starting guys at catcher that are like Austin Barnes level players. Miguel Rojas might be starting for some of the teams in the league. So I think Anthony, it's the roster's not as strong because we're comparing Andy Pages to like Michael Conforto and saying, why can't we have 2 Michael Confortos when that's just not how this league works?
Yeah. I think sometimes we lose focus on what depth actually is. And like you said, Max Muncy was hurt a lot of last year. If he plays the season at even, doesn't even have to play it at the clip that his numbers finished with, he could even be a little notch below that. And he's an all-star caliber player. That's how good he was offensively last season. OPS plus in like the 140s or something like that. Yeah. And he was hurt for a lot of it, but that's not out of the ordinary for a guy like him because of the power that he brings. So when you're talking about depth, it's not that 1 through 9 are all-star caliber offensive players. It's that your 7th hitter might be hitting cleanup on 21 other teams in the league.
Yeah.
Or somewhere in the middle of the order, right? Yes, we're going to complain all season about the bottom of the order. But I'll keep saying it. Go look at other teams' 7, 8, 9s.
Yeah. And
when you talk about bench depth, like I don't count Taylor in that. The last guy on the bench, again, is not making or breaking your season. And so to include Taylor in that depth conversation I think is disingenuous because he's not a guy they're counting on to do anything except for be in the clubhouse.
Yeah.
And give us a start when we need it every now and then.
Randy with the super chat. You have a payroll of $380 million and the most starting pitchers in the league, and that's all you've got is a AAA pitcher available tonight. I think it's
why.
Yeah, I think I understand. You're looking at the payroll and you're saying, why is a guy like Justin Wrobleski throwing innings? Now, part of it is according to plan. Hey, we knew that it doesn't matter who pitches in April. It matters who pitches in September and October. And by then, the Dodgers expect to have Shohei Ohtani pitching. They expect to have Clayton Kershaw pitching. They expect to have Emmett Sheehan pitching. They expect to have Tony Gonsolin pitching. They expect to have Blake Snell pitching. There's 5 guys who are not available today that this team is hoping and expecting in the second half of the season will all be available. And so, yes, Wrobleski is not a guy that maybe gets you super fired up, although I would point out he had a pretty good spring, had a good first outing in AAA. Like, he's not terrible. Sebastian, he just isn't up to the level of expectation that Dodgers fans have, and I'm not blaming them for that. I think we're right to be disappointed with what we saw from Wrobleski, but again, I think it just reminds us how high our hopes are. The Nationals threw a bullpen game today. Like they're throwing a bullpen game on April 9th. So this April 8th. We're comparing apples to oranges in a sense here, Sebastian.
Yeah, more to Anthony's point. Depth is only there to get you to the postseason. Like I watched a Trevor May video a YouTube video the other day. He's just ranking like the best starting rotations, and like he said it like obviously he's a former big leaguer. He knows what he's talking about, and it's just kind of logic in general. You need 3 really good pitchers to be successful in the postseason. You'd love to have 4, hell even 5, but you really need just 3.
Yeah,
and kind of it's easier to see how kind of depth doesn't matter. The role that depth players are supposed to have, it's easier to see in a rotation where we might have Kershaw pitching like 4th or 5th or whatever, and it's like that's the best 4th starter in the league. Like it's easier to see how kind of depth works that way. It's a little bit different with position players because you kind of expect if you're not starting, but if you're in a game, you're capable of hitting like at a high rate. But it's like they're depth for a reason. They're there. You're hoping that they're able to produce at like replacement or like slightly replacement level because they're not going to play that often. They're just kind of there, to like just kind of fill in occasionally. So, yeah, like you said, like it's the kind of the high expectations surrounding the team that kind of makes it disappointing. But it's like that's the reality of baseball. Like no one's going to be fully healthy throughout the whole season, and people would probably kind of kill to have Justin as like occasional spot starter that they bring up once in a while. Like
I was just gonna say this, dude. A lot of teams have a Justin Wrobleski in their rotation permanently.
Yeah, and I would add, like, let's also not assume that Justin Wrobleski is as bad as the guy we saw today every single time he's going out there. I also think we're seeing a guy who's not going to be expected to be an all-star level pitcher this year. He's also not 8 earned runs in 4 innings bad either. And so I think it's going to balance itself out. Richard with the super chat. He says it's 2 weeks into the season, but if I hear Eric Carroll say it's the weather, I am losing it. It's the same for both teams. Relax, people. 149 to go. I'm just going to leave that one there. I'm just going to leave. We don't need to add commentary to that, Richard. We appreciate the super chat.
I don't know, Jeff. The first thing that kind of popped in my mind was Derek Carr in winter games.
Here we go. Here we go. I just look. Eric Carroll's great Dodger. One of my mom's favorite Dodger outside of Kershaw and Hershiser, I think, is Eric Carroll's. And I'll leave it at that.
And I'll say this too, because we're doing a lot of like the sky is not falling right now. But a lot of these super chats are right. And a lot of the people in the chat are right that it is frustrating to see a team with this payroll and these expectations and all of this stuff have this kind of slide early in the season. I get that. And to say like, okay, you needed Wrobleski 14 games into the season, and then he comes out and he performs the way he performed. It's all of it is the frustrations are valid. I'm not trying to devalue that. It's just that let the season play out a little more and let's see where they stand at the end of like May.
Yeah.
Because
Anthony, don't flip over to the Laker game, by the way, Anthony. Just stay focused on this Dodgers game, okay? I need you dialed in right here. You don't need to see that Luka just got ejected from the Lakers game, okay? Just stay focused, all right? Twitter's not happy. Our guy, there you go. It's right in front of you. Our guy D Starkin's not happy on Twitter. He says he got jobbed. The NBA's soft. So if you want to talk about soft, we got baseball players complaining about cold. We got referees throwing Luka Doncic out of the game. It's a bad time all around in Los Angeles.
I am curious to see the end of that point was I'm curious to see like around the end of May where the teams that are currently ahead of the Dodgers, what they've looked like over a 2-month stretch then.
Yeah, agreed. All right, let's get to some key injury updates. And let's start with potentially some good news with Blake Snell. We mentioned last week that when Blake Snell came out, it was a shoulder issue. We weren't exactly sure what was going on. There were reports that he was not going to travel back to Los Angeles to get imaging, which was both weird and encouraging at the same time, I think. Well, it turns out he did get imaging. The good news is it is inflammation, but they haven't found anything else in there. But this is some quotes we got from Blake Snell on Monday. He said, quote, "I've been feeling it for 3 weeks. I thought I could pitch through it when I got to Philly, played long toss catch, tried to throw. I just couldn't. This sucks. I was hoping I could just get past it and pitch and it would go away. It's hurting. So I'll get healthy and get back out there. He said he underwent an MRI on Sunday, like I mentioned. He said he was, quote, in a good amount of pain during his 2 starts. I don't want to make excuses, but yeah, is what he said. The good news with Snell is that he's expected to start throwing again on Monday. No injection, no medical intervention needed, no timeline on when he'll be back, but Dave Roberts called it, quote, best case scenario. Sebastian, I'll come to you first. We've got 3 weeks of pain. Sounds like bad news. We've got nothing wrong with it other than inflammation. Sounds like good news. He's throwing again on Monday. Sounds like good news. What's the net here? Is this good news, bad news? What do we do with all this?
I think you just got to go meet it in the middle. Be like, okay, could have been worse, could have been better. Not to like kind of rehash anything just because it already happened, but that was kind of my biggest worry with when they signed Snell. I would have preferred Freed, but then I saw I already kind of figured he was going to get more money, and then when I saw the contract, I'm like, okay, because the biggest thing with like Snell is that he's not the most durable. Like he's like right what happened right now. Like he'll sometimes get hurt. But you realize like you see the contract difference, and you're like, okay, you're getting like similar production at like a significantly, lesser, like a significant fraction of the cost. But yeah, so I don't, it's kind of hard to tell right now, but at least, it's not anything too serious right now. So you're just hoping all you need to do is just survive until everyone's healthy again. So
Anthony, is there a silver lining in here that the first 2 starts we saw from Blake Snell, he wasn't pitching at 100%? Does that make you feel a little bit better?
A little bit, yeah. Actually, it does. He's been dealing with this basically since spring training. So yeah, I would say so that might give a little into why like he was giving up some hard contact, which is typically not like him, even though he'll walk guys. And then it is kind of a mixed bag because I think it was on Sunday we were like, oh, it's good news. He's flying with the team. He's not going back to LA to get imaging. Well, yeah. Dr. Elatrosh was flying with the team, so that's why he didn't have to go back. So I guess it cut in the middle there. But I think the report from him was essentially solid that he's going to be throwing again soon. I think anytime you get a guy to that point, he's already close. And so I said this too on Sunday. I think the fact that they even let him, or maybe I was just thinking it, the fact that they let him even go out there and throw the bullpen with this discomfort to see was a sign that like they didn't see it as a super serious thing. Maybe just a thing that's lingering and they need to get him rest so that it could actually heal and they don't have to worry about it anymore.
Yeah. And I think it's a reminder, right, that we kind of just assume these guys are like 100% healthy until they're not. And the fact that he's had some level of pain for a few weeks and went out there and threw, to your point, is a reminder that there's just sort of pain and soreness that these guys deal with on a day-to-day basis. And he's starting back up the season and he's starting to throw. And he's like, yeah, my shoulder doesn't feel 100%. So the fact that he has known about this pain and continued to throw as a guy who knows his body well, who knows the objective is to make it to October and beyond, if necessary, to pitch in the World Series, he's not going to go out there and risk it for a start in April. So the fact that he was even warming up, throwing long toss, now that we know that he's had this pain, I think is ultimately good news. And the fact that he's going to start throwing again on Monday tells me that we're not going to have like 3 weeks off and then have to build back up again. And so if everything goes well, if the shoulder is feeling better, realistically, we could see Blake Snell pitching for the Dodgers again in, I would say 2.5 weeks, maybe get a couple of bullpen sessions in after throwing on Monday. Maybe like one simulated game and he's back in business. So Dave Roberts says best case scenario. I'm not exactly sure I'm going to agree with him on that framing of things, but I would say more good news than bad news here for the Dodgers and Blake Snell. The other update that we received was Clayton Kershaw. And I would say again, Anthony, this is what I would call a mixed bag of an injury update because he's delayed. Bad news. The good news is it's the toe that's delaying him. There's nothing wrong with his arm. That's not the reason it's delayed. Yeah. He just basically said he can't get his toe to cooperate. He said, my arm is ready to go. My toe isn't all the way there. It's a unique injury for baseball. When my toe is ready, I will be ready to go. I'll ask you the same question, I guess, Anthony. Is this a good update, a bad update? What do we do with this?
I think it's a good update because I was under the impression like in the winter and even during spring training that the arm wouldn't be ready until like the second half. The fact that the arm is ready now at the start of the season is really good news. They may still slow play him, maybe up until, at some point like in May or whatever, depending on the toe. But I think the fact that it's the toe that's holding him back is positive news because the shoulder seems to be good based on these reports.
Yeah. Sebastian, you agree with that?
Yeah, you always want arm health is always harder to get right than, anything else for pitchers. So that's, like Anthony said, that's really good news. Yeah.
The good news with Kershaw too, like we know what he's here for. It's not to be making starts on May 1st, right? Like Kershaw is wake me up in June or July. And obviously he wants to pitch a bunch. He's going to get to 3,000 strikeouts, that whole deal. But he knows what the goal is. His goal is to not be a spectator when this team makes the postseason come October. And so whether or not he misses the first half of May or all of May or the first half of June, none of those things are overly concerning to me. It just comes down to, is he eventually able to get himself healthy? So there you go. We got a super chat here from the Sandwich, contributing to the Chris Taylor Resurrection /Seance Fund. Look, Chris Taylor is not good. Is not good. I find it like whoever Austin Barnes PR people are. I mean, why is Chris Taylor the only guy who gets crushed? Barnes doesn't have a hit this season. Nobody wants to take that. I'll just eat that.
I agree. Okay, I was thinking about this earlier today. Sorry, Sebastian. I'll make it quick. I was thinking about this earlier today because I told you every time something with Austin Barnes happens or he comes up, my mind immediately goes to Jeff. And I was thinking like, what do you want out of your backup catcher? And a hit every now and then would be nice. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, for 10 with 4 strikeouts doesn't move the needle for you, Anthony.
But I want the guy to be a catcher first, and he is. So at least he offers.
Wait, what? Austin Barnes? What does he do at the catcher position?
He
can't
the
throw.
Ball. He just catches the ball.
That he can do. He ate it. He had the one in Wrobleski's second blow up inning. It was like the guy stole and he just ate it. Because it's like, dude, it's like he's halfway to second. Make the throw. He's like, I don't got that.
Yeah. Look, the good news is for you, Jeff, that you probably won't have to deal with him after next. Hopefully they'll win the World Series this year, and then you won't have to see him anymore.
I know. And people love Austin Barnes. I mostly do it.
Once Kershaw's done, he's done.
I know he's not going anywhere, which is why it makes it funny. And he put the ball in play twice. Do either of you want to guess how many total feet of distance were accumulated by the 2 balls that Austin Barnes put in play today? I'm probably the only person that added these 2 numbers up. But Anthony, he was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts. Do you want to guess total number of feet? It's how many feet is it to the pitching mound?
61 essentially.
Okay, there we go. So 61 feet to the mound. Do you want to guess how many total feet, 2 pieces of contact?
29 feet.
No, it's under. It's like 70, 74, 76. That was twice. He hit the ball twice. And if you add them 2 up, if he got to stand where the first one ended, if he got to stand there and swing, he would have made it a few feet. He made it just off the dirt on the backside of the mound, I think.
Well, he doesn't even that doesn't even make it to first base.
I know. That's what I'm saying. And I think one of the numbers might be off. The pop-up, because he was the one who hit the infield fly that broke everything. I think they graded that out as like 40-something. And I'm like, that thing did not get halfway. No way it made it halfway to the mound. So
I will say, I think one that kind of is like kind of obvious to me. It's like people seeing what Chris Taylor can do. So they're kind of like, why can't you keep on doing that? And then Barnes is like, he's been doing this for so long, exactly this kind of play for so long. It's like, he's just like, oh, look at that little lovable scamp. When he gets a hit, it's like a celebration. It's like, oh, look at he did it.
Yeah.
And then
I think part of it too is people understand why he's on the roster.
Totally.
And for the most part, people are okay with that trade-off. Not Jeff, but for the most part.
It just gives me somebody to laugh about. I posted on Twitter. I said I thought about tweeting about Austin Barnes and decided against it. that was my tweet.
The irony is your unadulterated love for Clayton Kershaw, but your despise for his catcher.
It's not despise. It's just like people love to point out how bad everybody on the roster is, and like it's like Barnes has this halo around him. It's like Muncy sucks. It's like Muncy sucks. Like he should be 5th on your list of guys on this team to complain about. He shouldn't even be in the top 5. But neither here nor there. And look, Chris Taylor's terrible. Like, I'm not at all defending Chris Taylor.
You see, when you lose 4 of 5 and you lose to the Nationals in a blowout, this devolves into a Chris Taylor or Austin Barnes debate.
Yeah. And look, Laura, who's a loyal watcher and listener, is not in the chat right now, as far as I can tell. She's going to be, if she listens back to this, Laura, I'm sorry. Don't tweet at me. I know what you're thinking already. Chris Taylor's hitting 143, by the way, this season. Has a higher batting average than Kike. How about that? What's he got? Four hits and all 4 home runs or something like that?
Yeah.
It's my center fielder right there. Sexy looking slugging percentage. The batting average is bad, but the slug, baby, the slug.
Glasses Kike.
There we go. He's back. Hector wants to know, how much longer do you keep Kim at AAA? Days, weeks, 308 batting average, 873 OPS, not looking bad. We talked about this the other day. Dave Roberts has said he is a long-term play. Sebastian, Anthony and I talked about this a couple days ago. Where are you at on, I mean, for starters, let's just say Andy Pye has 2 hits tonight. Okay, guys, so he's the only guy with 2 hits. Maybe we give him a break from demoting him after tonight of all nights. But where are you at on Ha-Seong Kim? Are you ready for him to come up, or do you agree with Dave that, hey, let's slow play this, he needs some time?
Yeah, I think you don't want to you don't want to rush anything and just kind of undo all the progress he's made. So you don't want to, like if you can't help it, if like something happens where like you need him to come up and like you need something productive, then sure. But like if you can help it, you don't want to undo all like the progress he's made. Just get him, just keep on, let him get comfortable. If he starts hitting like 600, then I guess maybe you bring him up. But just at this point, just keep on letting him develop.
Anthony, one guy that I mentioned on Twitter today that we didn't even mention was Alex Freeland, who is a top 100 prospect. He's the only Dodgers top 100 prospect other than Dalton Rushing, who's like basically above high A. So they've got DePaula, they've got Hope, but those guys are like a couple, two and a half years away.
Right.
Freeland's having a great start to the year at Oklahoma City. He was basically only at AA where he found some success last year, a little bit at AAA and struggled. He's been very good. He's a shortstop primarily. They're not going to move Mookie off shortstop. In my head, I just assume if you could play shortstop, how hard is it to play second base? That might be a little league mindset here. But he's a guy we didn't mention that is having just as much of an offensive success sort of streak as Kim, but maybe with a little bit longer track record and maybe with a little bit more short-term expectations than Kim has.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. I saw your tweet on that, and he was a name that I hadn't thought because I just thought they were doing like they mentioned with Kim, which would be the longer play. And when the season started, I had those 2 scenarios for both those guys flipped in my head. And obviously, Doc said that Kim is on that longer term path. They're going to give him a lot of runway in OKC. Probably not really flirt with bringing him up unless he's absolutely kicking the door down. And so Freeland is interesting to me. Yes, I do think he's athletic enough and baseball IQ savvy enough to play second base. That's interesting. I had not thought about that until I saw your tweet and I started to think about it and started to look some things up. Interesting experiment. And I think it's a situation where like, I wonder if they would call him up thinking like you're going to have an opportunity to be the long-term solution, or if it would be like spot stuff, like you're up for 2 series or something like that. Someone got hurt or whatever.
Yeah.
Because the situation with that is he probably still needs some baking in AAA. And I don't know if they want to shake that confidence by bringing him up too soon. And maybe he doesn't succeed in that first, however, little while. So it's interesting, but that's always a question with guys who are sort of young and on the cusp like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you nailed it with both those guys. Is the worst thing the Dodgers could do is bring somebody else up and have them fail. Like, you're already probably hating what you're seeing from Andy Pages, the young guy that you have hopes and aspirations for long-term within the organization. And it sucks to watch him struggle. You did the same thing with James Outman last year. The last thing you want to do is bring up Freeland or Kim and then watch them do the same thing. And okay, cool. Now we've got 4 dudes that have no confidence in themselves rather than just, all right, Pages, ride this one out. And we were up until the last 4 or 5 games winning ball games in spite of all this stuff.
Right.
And tonight was far from his fault. So I think it's a great point by you. Let's get to some questions real quick. All caps questions. If you got anything, throw those in the chat and we will answer them. We got one right off the bat from Hallelujah. Something or nothing. They have Kim leading off in all of the games now. Sebastian, to me, I would say nothing other than like I would want him getting as many at bats as possible. He has speed to play at the top of the lineup, so I don't view this as anything other than like how can we get him the most at bats as quickly as possible.
Yeah, it's just his best kind of fit in their lineup for the Comets now. I like their rebrand actually.
GI says, would you consider moving Ohtani to the 2 or 3 hole if the bottom of the lineup can't get on base? He only has 6 plate appearances with 4 walks with runners in scoring position. So if you don't trust the sort of the 8 and 9 guys to get on base, do you put somebody who is reaching base ahead of Ohtani so he gets more opportunities, Anthony?
I could see them dropping him back down to 2 if it gets bad enough. But then you run into the same issue anyway with Mookie, who isn't going to put up the home run number that Ohtani probably is going to put up. But no matter who you put up there, especially with the way Mookie's also performing offensively, you're going to handcuff somebody in that way anyway. So I think it just depends. I think if the lineup continues to struggle with air quotes, maybe they flip the 2 of those guys. I don't see him going down beyond the 2nd spot though. Yeah.
There's nobody that's getting on base. The Dodgers as a team have one of the worst batting averages. So it's like the guys getting on base are Will Smith, Teoscar Hernandez, Mookie Betts, and Shohei Ohtani. So which of those 4 guys do you want to move up to the leadoff spot, ahead of Ohtani and Betts? So I think it's a fair question, but they just don't have anybody that fits that as well. Tim wants to know, when is Freddie expected back? Minimum IL stint or longer? It depends on if you believe Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts, if you believe it, is optimistic about Freddie Freeman coming back soon. So whether or not you want to make plans for somebody else playing first base for the next 6 weeks on that news or not is up to you. How much do you trust Dave Roberts? Let's see. Eric wants to know, where is Bobby Miller? Bobby Miller, just his time in the rotation didn't line up. He pitched basically the day that Snell went on the injured list. Bobby Miller had pitched, so he wasn't going to be eligible Tuesday or Wednesday just because of that.
I think if he would have lined up and if there were a way where both him and Wrobleski lined up, that's a better way to put it. I think Bobby Miller probably wouldn't have been the guy.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, Wrobleski, like I said, had 1 start in AAA and had been good. I think it was like basically the best start anybody had had. He was also better than Bobby Miller all spring, but I think on name recognition, prospect status, I don't think it wouldn't have been crazy either way. Scooter Booter said, can Freeland handle lefties? He hit 223 against lefties last season, 270 against righties. So he's definitely more of a righty crusher than he is a lefty crusher.
And to that point, you would not bring a guy up like him to be a platoon. Like, if you bring that guy up, you bring him up to play every day. Otherwise, you might as well leave him in the minors.
Yeah, and he had a 370 on base percentage against lefties, so he was drawing walks. The on base percentage was pretty close, but the batting average was lower. What do you think about this, Sebastian? Rod wants to know, should Max Muncy be moved over to first base until Freddie Freeman returns?
Yeah, that honestly might. I don't know why I haven't thought of that. That's honestly kind of perfect.
I mean, my only pushback would be Kike's looked pretty good at first, and so like I don't think there's like a deficiency defensively with how they have it set up. I know people don't like Muncy at third, but I don't know if this Anthony necessarily like improves the overall defense by moving Muncy to first and then presumably just putting Kike at third.
Yeah, I don't think it does much. So I would just kind of leave it as is, especially if Muncy's going to have to go back anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
The only thing I would think of is just because it depends on, I guess Kike would go to third, or who would go to third?
I would imagine Kike is the guy that stays in. I mean, it's Kike or Rojas or Chris Taylor. So I think we know how
things are like
those guys.
I think I'm just biased because, like, I think, well, obviously you had to move him because of Freddie, but like that's always kind of been his like best position.
Yeah.
And maybe just like Anthony said, like moving him back would kind of just be like, or moving him at this point would just kind of be like messy. But like that would be like the thing where it's just like, just have him there at first, and then but never.
If Freddie was out long term, then maybe that's a conversation, maybe. But like, I don't think you don't want to keep moving a guy. You don't want to move a guy back and forth like that when you know his position for the rest of the season is going to be that other one. Like you just leave him there, and you give the fill-in guy the short-term spot.
Interesting to see Fiducia at the end of the game playing a little first base. He had to borrow a glove, so I think that tells you how much experience he has over there. But who knows? Maybe they like in some moments, hey, a lefty that can play first base. Okay, last question here. We're going to end on a food question because it just feels like one of those nights. Are you guys familiar with Dots pretzels?
I'm familiar with Dots, and I'm familiar with pretzels.
But not Dots pretzels.
Not Dots pretzels.
Okay, so this is my challenge to you. There's a lot of people that haven't heard of these. Dots pretzels. It's a snack. I'm pretty sure they're everywhere. I can find them in Costco by me. It's like this buttery, they're like little pretzel sticks, and it's kind of this buttery situation is the original flavor. Fantastic. Daniel said he called them like crack sticks or something like that. Cracked pretzels.
Okay.
I think we were both thinking of the ice cream.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking.
I thought they were putting ice cream on a pretzel.
Yeah, I just looked those up right now. They're in my pantry right now.
I love it. It's amazing.
Those things are great. The honey mustard. Oh man.
Okay. So I was gonna say, I just tried the cinnamon sugar. If you haven't tried the cinnamon sugar, buddy, game changers. Okay, so now I want to go try because I have not tried. I've tried original and I've tried cinnamon. But
okay. Yeah. They need to make. I haven't. If they make it, I haven't found it. But I need something with some spice. I need some fire on these.
Yeah, I don't think they have any heat. I saw like a garlic parmesan and a barbecue flavor. Those exist.
I saw barbecue. Yeah. But no, those are legit. I like those a whole lot. And I'll say this too. Pretzels, even with some of the seasoning, pretzels are low key. Not a bad snack. Like if you're trying to watch like calories or weight or anything like that, like pretzels are a good one.
Okay. Well, I doubt any of the things that I just described are good for you in any sense of the word. I don't think they're, I mean, if it's that or like eating a tub of ice cream, then maybe the pretzels are a better option. But yeah. And yeah, like I haven't eaten yet. I mean, if you just think about the game time and then the show, we got dinner coming around the corner. But Dots pretzels, folks, if you haven't tried them yet, 10 out of 10. The original ones are great. Cinnamon sugar, great. Anthony says honey mustard is great. So there you go. Folks, that'll do it for us tonight. Thank you for hanging in there with us. Over 1,000 people in here on a Tuesday night. We appreciate you. That is Sebastian. That is Anthony. I am Jeff. We will be back on Thursday. It will be me. I know a lot of people have said, hey, where's Blake? Where's Matt? They're going to be in the rotation on Thursdays. So stay tuned for that. It'll be me and one of them on Thursday. We have a surplus. Yeah, exactly. We have a surplus now, which is a good problem to have. So we'll be doing that Thursdays, and then Anthony will be back on Sundays. The Dodgers lose 4 of their last 5. We know it's not great. It's not awesome, but we move on. 9-4. If you missed it, muralist Robert Vargas was on the show. Not a guy that you may be familiar with, but he did a huge Ohtani mural in LA, a huge Fernando mural, 3-part mural in LA. It's crazy. He just doesn't sketch these things out. There's no projection. He just gets up there with the paintbrush and friggin' paints buildings. Did one in Japan as well. Sweet interview. And then I teased it on Sunday, but in the next couple of days, one of my all-time favorite Dodgers, bobblehead on the shelf behind me. That man right there, Eric Gagne, returns to DodgerHeads. So he's part owner of a bat company that makes torpedo bats. So we talked to the man himself about torpedo bats and the story of how these came about. His guy was in Yankees camp talking to the MIT dude a year ago. So fun stuff that should be posting in the next couple of days. So check out Dodger Blue, 1958. Subscribe, ring the notification bell. DodgerBlue.com. You can read stuff written by Sebastian, among others. But Dodgers lose. It's all right. Enjoy the rest of your night, everybody. Go Dodgers. And yes, at 9-4, lost 4 out of 5. Doesn't matter. Still, champs.